You can see the base is made of river stone, the top of baked bricks, and then these tiles here, the curved tiles, these are called giwa or gihwa. So this style house and these types of dwellings are for the rich. We have servants' quarters here at the main gate. So servants would stay here, and then obviously when someone comes to the gate, they would let them in. So here we have the main front. So this is called Jaeshil in Korean, and this was the place where people who come to visit the tomb, so probably the king's family or other royals, officials, they would stay here, and it basically means house of purification. So things here that would be stored here are things like incense and all those types of things. Because this is a tomb, actually this building is not decorated with all the pretty colors that you will see in other royal buildings that you would expect to see in Seoul. It's kind of a somber place, a place for reflection. It's not meant to be a happy place. That's why we don't see any bright colors on the building. It's quite different to the kind of work you would see in a building in Seoul. For example, in Seoul or in Hwasong Castle or around there, all of this wood will be very brightly colored and painted with very intricate patterns, very beautifully painted. This is really a kind of place to come and reflect on the past. Look at the design of the gardens too. It's a very simple design, nothing fancy. The buildings themselves are, you know, simple and somber, but still the type of building that you would expect officials or scholars to be staying in. Certainly for the king's family, you would be wanting something fairly usable and nice without having any of the joyous aspects. We're on the way to the tombs now, and it's all planted with Korean red pine, which is the symbol of a long life, and it's a symbol often used by kings in a hope to have a long and prosperous reign, an evergreen reign. So we're still on our way now to the first tomb. Which is quite a walk away. So we have two different roads here. This road on this side and this road on this side. This road here is called the Aro. This is the, oops, where's it gone? The Hyangro. So the Hyangro literally means road of incense, and it is for carrying incense and written prayers during the ceremony. We are asked not to walk on this when we come to the tombs. The Oro is where the king would walk along when he holds a ceremonial or memorial service. So we're going to go along this one just to be respectful. This is the main entrance to this particular tomb. And we see here more of the typical bright colored architecture that we could expect in a general type of Korean building. The intricate designs. So this is the ceremonial room. And we'll go to see the actual Neung. So Korean graves have a different name depending on the status of the person in question. So this entire thing here, this entire hill, is the tomb itself. So Neung is a hill style tomb. Then when we go to the side here, there's going to be a ancestral plaque which will tell us the information of the king buried here. So usually couples were buried together. How romantic. And it's written here, there's a wasp nest, so I'm not going to go close. They should probably do something about that. There's a wasp nest right there. It's written in the traditional seal script. And this is the Geonneung. So who does this tomb belong to? It belongs to Jeongjo Daewang. So Daewang means great king, and Jeongjo was a great king because he did a lot of good things for the people and for the Joseon dynasty at the time. During the time, it wasn't possible for just anyone to take exams for public office. You had to be of a certain social standing, and he got rid of all of that, and he said, well, it's the skill that should count rather than just nobility or birth. So he opened that up and changed it so that regular people, as long as they could pass the test, they could actually enter the service of the court, which was quite an amazing deal at the time. He also made it so that not only merchants but regular people were allowed to sell and buy at the market without restrictions. So formerly, only merchants were allowed to ply their trade in the market. They had a kind of license system, but he made it so that even poor villagers were able to enter the market and sell their produce without any problem and without needing a pass to do so. It cut out the merchants kind of preying on poor villagers. So he made a lot of reforms which made him quite unpopular with some of the nobles who were corrupt at the time, but that obviously made him quite popular with the local people and with the villagers that were basically just trying to survive and get along with their lives. So that is why he also has this title of Great King. Here's another building for residence and preparation for ceremonies. So the title Great King is well applicable to Cheongjo. Cheongjo actually took over from his grandfather. So we're going to have a look at the father, who was not a particularly nice dude. So his tomb is another one, and then we have to walk quite a way to get there. We're now walking towards the Yungneung. Now, Korean graves, depending on the status of the person, has different names. It's hard to talk and walk and breathe at the same time. So generally, a king's tomb is called a neung, which is a hill type tomb, and the king's family side, so his paternal mother, his mother and that side, their tombs would be called won, and then other royals' tombs would just be called myo. Now, the next tomb we're going to, he technically wasn't king. My hair's blowing in the wind. He technically wasn't a king. He was just the crown prince. He was never actually crowned, but still his tomb has the title Neung, and there's a very special reason for that, and we'll find out what happened, because there's a whole drama, a whole big drama behind this guy. So here we have the Yungneung, and this is the tomb of Crown Prince Sado and his wife. We have the basic ceremonial building here, like we do with the other tombs. You'll find, if you travel around Korea, that this layout is fairly consistent throughout the tombs. There's even if you're looking at tombs from Shilla dynasty, which is way before Joseon, there is quite a similar format for these mound tombs, although Shilla tombs are much larger than this even. They're really exceptionally huge. These are kind of just, I know it sounds funny to have a giant mountain like this as one person's grave, and it's very, very large, but these are still small compared to the other tombs that there are in Korea. So we're just going here to the ceremonial plaque, which is essentially just an enormous gravestone. And I'm noticing wasps here too. So here we have, once again, in the different scripts. So this is seal script, and I can see wasps, so I really don't want to go close here. So this belongs to Crown Prince Sado and his wife. Crown Prince Sado was not a particularly nice person. Now, Crown Prince Sado was the grandson of King Yungneung, who was also considered to be quite a good king when it comes to the Joseon people. He was trying to build reforms and modernize Korea, make it better for poor people. He is not popular with Catholics because he despised the Catholic religion, and he was very, very harsh towards Catholics. He called it a cult. So on the Catholic front, he's not particularly a popular king. However, his son, King Sado, or shall I say Crown Prince Sado, who was never actually king, was a very nasty individual. He raped the court attendant woman. He was very violent towards his wife, and he even murdered one of his concubines, leaving her to bleed to death on the floor of their house. And when people came to take her away, he just went in and had a meal. It appears that he had mental issues, and things really started to get out of hand. During an appearance in court, he got upset with a court official and said that he would basically kill that court official's son. He then tried to enter the royal palace at night in the disguise and got caught. Finally, the king's family was very upset, and they thought, this guy is really going to kill one of us soon. He'd already killed his concubine. So the problem was that under Joseon rule and under Joseon law, you could not just execute a prince. You would have to then also banish his family, because you would have to disown him completely and then execute him, meaning that his family would then become enemies of the state according to law. Now, King Yongjo really didn't want that to happen to his daughter-in-law, who he liked very much, and to his grandchild, who would later become the man whose tomb we visited there, King Jeongjo. So what he did was, he couldn't officially execute him, so he had him locked in a large wooden box and left out in the sun. It's claimed that they took him back in the evening, and that they took the box containing this person who was still alive into the castle, and that when they opened the box on the 8th day, they had found that he was deceased. And by executing him in that manner, in a non-public way, the king was able to actually subvert the law and protect his son's wife, his daughter-in-law, and their son. And thus King Jeongjo later was able to inherit the throne and become one of Korea's most famous and best kings. So it's a very kind of sad and twisted story, but it was the only way to get around this legal system which had to be upheld. And about 14 days after his death, he was posthumously reinstated and giving the title of king, even though he wasn't. And that's why we have this here as a Neung and not a Won, because he is like a de facto king, even though he was never actually king. So there's a bit of twisted Joseon history for you. And yeah, these are the famous tombs. If you want to visit them, they're in Hwasong in Korea. One interesting thing you may note is that the Oro, which we are walking on now, is actually lower than the Hyangro, because In traditional belief, they believed that the gods or the spirits of the ancestors would walk on this higher road, and that's why technically you're not meant to walk there other than in a ceremony.